A very good afternoon, and I must especially thank Dr. Dharmaraju and Ashok ji for the wonderful accolades, and it increased my tension actually. When Dr. Dharmaraju had asked me for this presentation, I just started wondering as to what I should be presenting, and then I thought that instead of showing my projects, it may be better that we talk about the acceptability of bamboo, because by and large over the last 15 20 years, since I've been actively involved in this particular field, I find that it's becoming extremely difficult to uh, make bamboo acceptable until and unless you actually go to the field and build it for the people, with the people. And I was under different capacities to different places regarding bamboo. Then I thought it may be a good idea to take you to a personal journey as to what all challenges I had faced in promoting bamboo. And there are excellent works which is being happening all over the world in the field of bamboo. But still, when I think about, let's say, a rural housing project in India, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is one of the largest programs in this continent. 30 million houses are being built. Acceptability of bamboo is pretty much difficult. But then I see a light of hope when I find that in certain states there is some proactive action and bamboo is being adapted in construction. So let me begin with my personal journey, which was always up the hill against the wind, but not necessarily always. Uh, Many years back, I'm talking about 2015-16, I was working in Meghalaya, that was under Asian Development Bank project. And there we were supposed to build 114 schools. Now, when we were planning to make 114 schools, uh, in the inner core of my mind, I was always thinking that Meghalaya is a state where, can you see what I'm drawing? Can you see what I'm drawing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Uh, the bricks and cement and everything is imported from the adjacent states, like Assam was the largest supplier of all these materials. And that time, Mr. Mukul Sangma was the chief minister of Meghalaya. And while we were discussing that, how do we use this particular project, which was $100 million, uh, in creating local skills and at the same time local level employment. So the honorable chief minister, he encouraged that, okay, do you have any idea? I said, why don't we revive bamboo, which your people already know? Then he said, well, I mean, there may be some objections from the people because everybody is dreaming of reinforced cement concrete. you know uh, in pan India, if you look at the course of civil engineering and architecture, almost 90 to 95% is reinforced cement concrete and steel, and then pre-stressed concrete, and then cable structure and the like. But we do not find much of this coverage of the course curricula on traditional building materials, bamboo in particular. So quite often, the government engineers and generally my own engineering fraternities and architects fraternities, we're not always necessarily very well equipped to deal with bamboo. If I do not understand much about bamboo, how will I convince others about bamboo? So in Meghalaya, I thought it is a good opportunity, and with the help of the highest body of the state, why don't you give it a try? So we began the journey. ADB was supposed to construct 117 school buildings in Meghalaya as demonstration projects, which will be livelihood generating, which will be respecting the local culture, and in particular, it should be climate change friendly. So out of 117 schools, when we did the resource mapping, we found that in the Garo Hills, we were supposed to make 54 buildings, out of which 9, the community decided that, okay, we go for treated bamboo. In a similar manner, in Khasi Hills, out of 46, 6 school buildings were supposed to be built with bamboo. Likewise, in Jayantia, in Rivoy, These are the buildings. So total 21 buildings were supposed to be constructed using bamboo. We were all very much enthusiastic about it. And this is Garabada, one particular block of Meghalaya, where people en masse came forward and said, okay, we will go for a bamboo school building. Now, I started doing resource mapping, and I got this gentleman who was 84 years old at that particular point of time. And to my surprise, he was in Shillong. To my surprise, he built 30 buildings which were more than 80 years old in Shillong proper, using different varieties of bamboo. But you won't see them because they were all plastered. So this is one sample which he brought for me. And seeing this one, I was so excited. Then I started traveling to all the schools that he had designed and constructed. And this man didn't have any formal education, but he could read, write, he could do calculations, and he could do the estimations and everything. So we decided that we will make this gentleman as a key man. Meanwhile, I had already these 4 young boys and girls who were working with me. They were all local architects. And these are the 4 school teachers in Garubada who said, we would like to help you directly and by getting involved in the whole project. Fantastic. Did it really happen? It didn't take off as planned. Why? The consultant was pro reinforced cement concrete. That's basically the main problem. Who was this consultant? Because 100 million US dollar, 100 million US dollar was the investment. So we needed a consultant. So the consultant was appointed and they wanted to use RCC. So it was not getting a favor from them. Second, the basic structural design, the main issue was who will approve? PWD said we are not good enough. Then they said that, okay, let's go to IIT Guwahati. So, whenever there is a developmental project, there is a tremendous pressure of time. People would like to see the schools being built. They would never allow our time wastage on research and development, if you call it wastage. Management of the treated bamboo, there was no time for that. So people started saying, sorry, we want more buildings. As usual, speed was more desired. Even Asian Development Bank started saying, come on, man, let me see the school buildings. This was a wasted opportunity. So in spite of such a favorable ground, whether the state chief minister was giving us an excellent opportunity, we missed the bus. But Meghalaya still depends on the other states, and they are still importing materials from other states where the state itself is so rich in bamboo. But the situation is not all that bad. Currently, I'm working on a project which is in the southeast Meghalaya, and this is basically the site, and this is basically my area. And in this entire forest, there are bamboos tucked in everywhere. Now, in the village, already people have started using bamboo. This is one bamboo building which is 40 years old. And this bamboo, what they do is they do not go for chemical treatment. There is noise from somewhere. Noise is coming from somewhere. Yeah, thank you very much. Now, the local people, what they use is they simply use red oxide, mix it with a little bit of creosote oil, and simply paint it. And there are many, many buildings within the village which are all built using bamboo. We said, fantastic, we will use this as a base. So we had a community meeting, and in the community meeting, there were a couple of bamboo workers who were invited, and we planned out the entire process. And we all decided that, okay, let's go and build with bamboo. Now, this is the site plan where you can see all the building locations. This is basically the training hall, and this is the workshop. These are the different bamboo production units. So the community wants to do a branding, and they wanted to manufacture different building components using bamboo so that they can supply it to different parts of Meghalaya. So the project right now is at very, very nascent stage. The foundation work had started last week and it's going on. And I'm pretty sure in another 6-7 months' time, we should be able to do something very, very interesting. Here, I would say the villagers, they have the credit of 90% because everything is decided by them, funded by them, etc. Sikkim. Uh, I was the rural housing advisor to the uh, United Nations Development Program. And UNDP was approached by the Sikkim government that under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, why don't you introduce bamboo? So fine, fair enough. So we decided that we will go to the participatory design approach, and following that, we'll be doing a hands-on training program of the masons and the junior engineers, and in the process of beneficiaries' house construction. So that was basically the model, and we thought that this is an excellent opportunity to promote bamboo. So we selected Jorthang, Gezing, Peling, and Gangtok. These are the few places where, through hands-on training program, we would like to actually build houses under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and we'll demonstrate how effective bamboo is. Now, when I did resource mapping in the Jorthang areas, I found that these buildings are all 40 to 50 years old. And this is mud. This is mud. But this is cement on bamboo mat, the ikra. So, here the basic problem is you see erosion here and erosion there because the plinth height is pretty small and because of the, backsplash of the rain. Backsplash of the rain is the main cause of erosion of this particular thing. You do not find it here because there is a plinth there. So with the people, we had heart-to-heart discussion, and then they showed us various kinds of bamboos which are available there. And they said, okay, we'll go ahead with that. This is one of the bamboos that I found in the local areas. So started making, this is without treatment. I wanted to demonstrate to them that how we can make simple trusses. People took a lot of enthusiasm and trusses were built. But eventually they said, no, not in the first house. We don't want to use this kind of bamboo in the first house because it was actually a 5-day training program. So they said, we would like to do a proper treatment of the bamboos and then we will adapt this technology. So what happened there was we used the timber and timber truss also, but all the wall was with ikra. And what they did was they used a smoke treatment. What they do, they take hot water and dip this split bamboo in that for a while, and then they smoke them. They don't smoke the bamboos before splitting. And I found that is one of the excellent techniques where surface area is exposed to the treatment. Now, I have been told 2 months back that now many of them have started using this kind of trusses based on bamboo that we had talked about. Now, the advantage of this is that 400 to 500 rupees per CFT was the timber from the forest, and quite understandably, they were all illegally acquired. Now, when the government became very strict about it, obviously they switched over to bamboo. And bamboo had actually virtually no cost because each household had at least 100 bamboos at their disposal. So after building this 1054 PMAYJ houses were built, and I have been reported that about 15% of them were based on bamboo trusses. Now, Sikkim has so many varieties of bamboos. These are some of the predominantly used bamboo in building construction. And these are basically the locations. But what was lacking in that was modulus of elasticity, tension, compression, and shear strengths, bearing strength, etc. Without engineering values of these, it is very difficult to promote in the government situation. And I know the CBRI has got an ongoing research work on bamboo. And I think it's very important that we bring forward these basic strengths of different varieties of bamboos to make them more acceptable to the people. So that's a Sikkim story. So in Sikkim, what happened was The government, this is one diagram which I have drawn, that this is a government and this is the block development office. The block development office is the lowest level of interaction between the government and the people. Now, it starts from the state level, then it goes to the district magistrate levels and to the BDO. Beyond BDO is just the people, the Gram Panchayat leaders, the Gram Sabha leaders, and the people. Now, let us look that at the top level, people were convinced about it. And the engineers, they had a little bit of inertia right in the beginning. But then after their training, they were quite motivated and go for bamboo, though they had a little bit of bias on reinforced cement concrete technology. They said we need reference to Bureau of Indian Standard. If you look at Bureau of Indian Standard, if you compare the bamboo, structural bamboo standard, that is 15912, which is nothing compared to, let's say, IS 456. IS 456 is a highly sophisticated code system, and unfortunately, our bamboo codes are very, very rudimentary even today. So we were a bit uncomfortable when they said give reference to Bureau of Indian Standards. There was just a few pages of it. I think this is a special area where we have to emphasize. Management of treated bamboo, when I was conducting the training program, there was no time. But then later on, people had set up their own system. They used primarily copper, chromium, and borax treatment. The community preferred timber plus ICRA. And it was too short a time to convince them about the bamboo truss, which we conducted it sometimes in the month of June. But by the time the winter arrived and they started using these bamboo trusses one by one, the skill existed, the community was okay with bamboo. And so Sikkim is right now in the right mood and state to promote bamboo and use bamboo on a large scale in the rural sector. Tripura. I usually work more like a contractor, not really a contractor, a mistri rather than a consultant. Because wherever I do a project, sorry, there's a spelling mistake of rural housing. Okay. I prefer to go sit with the community and build with them. Help them in procuring the materials, help them in all the technical matters, but I do learn. It is never one way. I remember when we were working in Tripura, I went with all AutoCAD drawings of bamboo joint details, everything. The day I found that the bamboo worker came to my site and slashed the ends of the bamboos with his hand cutter, I immediately changed the design detailing. Now the design and detailing were based on the cutting tools and their skills. So we had to redraw all the joint details that were prepared earlier. Tripura was under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. We did a nationwide research on rural architecture, and there were 8 consultants who all went door to door, went to the people, sat with them, tried to understand what exists at the rural level, what is people's aspirations for the house that they are going to build. After I finished my studies on Tripura, when we made a presentation in the Ministry of Rural Development, MORD, the additional secretary said, I have seen many such research works, but until and unless you field it, you field test it, it has got no value to me. So UNDP said that, okay, carry on, go and build some houses. So that is the genesis of this particular Tripura project. The first is, this is the multi-hazard map of Tripura. It must be noted that the whole of Tripura is zone 5 of seismicity. And the whole of Tripura is under highest wind area. So it took me quite a lot of time to talk to the engineers and talk about the use of bamboo in a multi-hazard situation like this. We begin with these 9 criteria for understanding the local architecture. We had talked to the people at the state level, then district level, block level, settlement level, and finally at the house level. And we travel by car. We stopped at a place, we stayed there, we interacted with the people, and this is how we try to understand what is the view of the state level, district level, block, settlement, and the people on the issue of rural housing. Merge them together to get a handbook for design technology and training needs. Convert it into a compendium and share it with the state and modify it. Because we went back to the people once again, and the people, they modified the designs once again. These are the places where we did resource mapping in quest of bamboo. We recorded 623, I remember exactly that, 623 varieties, minor varieties of different kinds of rural technology that the people they used. We didn't want to separate out rural technologies with the space planning. They are integrated with each other. All the people said, we do not want CGI. In Tripura, they call it GCI. But generally, we call it CGI. Majority of the roofs are in corrugated iron sheet, but they all leak because they corrode after a few years. So people said, we would like to have an alternative to that. And mud was the most predominant construction materials for wall. They said, we need some improvement to this one. Now, this is a typical, the Tripura house, a tribal house, where they use bamboo on the top as an arrestor because the wind suction can be as high as 175 kg per square meter. And this is how the interior looks like. So since there is a connection between the top and the bottom, these people, they were so clever that if you have two bamboos separated by a third bamboo, the moment of resistance of this increases by many times because there is significant R. So we accepted that. This is another kind of reinforced wall. These are with split bamboos. They are very strong against lateral forces. These are the indigenous knowledges. And when they use mud, they usually hammer in these kind of pebbles to increase the strength, or rather increase the pebbles are driven to reduce erosion. So we started learning this kind of indigenous knowledge from the rural people, and then we wanted to utilize the same thing in a revitalized form for the demonstration building that we were supposed to build. Now, when you typically look at a village, this is after surveying 54 blocks of Tripura, we found that the traditional buildings, that means this kind of buildings, they were 30%. And industrially produced, that is brick and all, they were 10%. And the hybrid, that means between this and this, were 60%. We thought this is the area where we would like to help them because they want to transform. And some people like the Kaipengs and the Riangs, they said, we do not want to change the building form. So we give them modern technologies. And we also try to understand the pattern of living of the people. So we went, house to house. And as I have already told you, 623 places where we had visited. And we tried to map the kind of furniture they use. Very importantly, utensils is something which is very important in tribal life. Different, tribes, they used different utensils. Therefore, we had to design the storage centering around that. The Kaipengs and the Riang said, I do not want your design. Let it be our design only. So roughly, a typical Kaipeng house, this is called a tonghar. Tong means stilted, about 28.14 square meter. And then there is a deck at the back where they keep the agricultural produce in the end of the day. And the front, there is a tiny veranda. And all the activities take place within this particular area. So we didn't want to change the design, but we improved the entire design by adding on the cupboard and obviously treated bamboos. First of all, obviously, we had to go for training. The training was a very hilarious kind of a situation because in most of the cases, we found that the traditional workers, they were as knowledgeable as the resource persons. And there we used copper, chromium, and borax treatment, and it was a 5-day training program. On the training was done, we took them to a place which is called Katlamara, which is about a good 45 kilometers from the state capital, Agartala. And there was a good furniture manufacturing unit. So we thought that the joint should be artistic. So those people, they taught the masons and me also how to do artistic joint details. Once everything was done, we thought, let us procure the right kind of bamboos. This was really very difficult. We had excellent quality Kanakaij bamboo. In uh, Kanak means gold. Kanakai's bamboo. Kanakai's bamboo is roughly about 50 millimeters diameter, and it's almost solid like lathi baj. In the center, there will be hardly 1 inch of this void. But this was excellent quality, but quite expensive. Then we went to another place called Langmanu Pahar. Uh, there it was quite affordable, but it was far away from the place where we were building, so it was not cost effective. Finally, with the help of one of our trainings, we were able to find out bamboos nearby. Treatment started. We started building. Then came this lady. This lady came and said, "Stop all this nonsense. Bamboo is bad. We have been using in bamboo for last so many 100 years. Do you live in a bamboo house in Delhi?" Asked me. I said, "No." "Then why are you trying to use bamboo here?" So I said, "Look, ma'am." Then I started explaining many things. And I told my construction workers, this is Omar Ali and this is Sultan Mia. I said, "Go ahead, ma'am. Don't stop." So they were using these hand augers. And the lady sat there for about hour and a half. And when she saw that it was so hard to drive it through these bamboos, and when they used electric drill, smoke was coming out of it. Then suddenly the lady got up and said, "Okay, good enough, carry on." So after we got her go ahead, we started building. A very simple house, it was constructed. And for your information, uh, I'm talking about June 2016. We spent 16,536.89 rupees with a profit of 20%. And this is basically the audit of different bamboos that we had used. And we covered 409 point whatever is a square feet. So that's basically the bamboo. I was personally present there documenting the data every day. And the government engineer also came forward and he gave me a hand. In the beginning, the government engineer was totally against me, totally against bamboo. But then in the end of the game, when the whole thing was over, he became the champion of that particular project. Then what happened next in Tripura? Is Tripura flooded with bamboo houses? No. When we were having resource mapping, there was hardly any enthusiasm. And when we were building the 4 buildings in Sipahijola district, the enthusiasm went up and up and up. And it was very high in the end of 2018. Then came the election. When the assembly election came, and that was basically the time when the principal secretary shifted to Delhi, the joint secretary, Rural Development Department, who was a protagonist, got promoted. The champion BDOs and the JAs got transferred, and UNDP withdrew the project. Sone pa suhaga. The whole thing flopped. And then it is going on slowly, slowly. So one of the major things that I have understood that until and unless there is a top level support promoting bamboo, and there is basically a whole team starting from the top level down to the grassroots, it is very difficult to promote bamboo. But whatever I might say about Tripura, currently I have been told that they are again picking up. They're again picking up. So in Tripura, what happened was, if this is a video, the top level, they were apprehensive. They were cautious because they were not aware of the alternative technologies. Okay. And even today, I can't say that the top level is really, really convinced, but now they can see some examples. engineers, after initial apprehension, the chief engineer, rural development department, he accepted the analysis of rates. This is for pan India. If somebody says where is the analysis of rates of bamboo, I would request you to directly interact with the rural development department, and there is officially submitted analysis of rates of bamboo and cement stabilized earth block. Okay, the DM and the block development officers, some degree of confidence in bamboo has happened with them. Community, bad experience of using untreated bamboo. They were not in favor of bamboo. But Kajal's house, one of the most well-built houses of that area, withstood one earthquake plus annually at least 10 northwesters, high wind since June 2016, and it has established its hazard safety. Seeing the day-to-day progress of the final product, the BDO became a promoter of bamboo. Now he is not there in Nalchar. He is in the northern part called Jampui Jola district, and he still talks to me over telephone from time to time, and he's promoting in his own way. Okay. Sultan Mia and Omar Ali, I still have very good communication with them, and whenever they have any problems, they ask me for a solution. And whenever there is some work which is going on, I ask them to connect me online so that I learn. So learning is two-way. I will be going a bit fast now. It's already 1:41. Samoa. Samoa is a tiny island in Pacific. And my main job was there to upgrade the building code. You can say that who the hell are you to upgrade building code? What knowledge do you have about it? No, the main point of Samoan government was that Samoa is totally dependent on uh, products from Australia and New Zealand. And their national building code was completely based on Australia and New Zealand. So 90% of the houses of Upolu Island, they were basically vernacular architecture based, but majority were not coming under the building regulations. So they wanted to include vernacular architecture within the National Building Code, and that was the main reason for me to be there. So I went there. Any island that you just see endless water and water and water everywhere, isolated small place. This is a typical Samoan house. All the timber that you say are all imported from Australia or New Zealand, mostly from Australia. The ship used to come from Australia. It would take about 7 days to reach Samoa after reaching the Papua New Guinea and one or two islands. And then they will unload the timber here and then go back. The whole of Samoa is dependent on Australia and New Zealand. Now, a typical house like this, Samoans, they do not have much of, what shall I say, preference for privacy. This is what is a typical house of Samoa. Interestingly, each house was consuming 6 to 10 cubic meters of timber, a huge amount of timber, which were all imported from Australia. Now, local vernacular architecture was far from there. This is a sisal-like timber. These are the tree branches, straight tree branches. And they are used to make this kind of hall of audience. So what I did was started studying with the local people. You see, look at this joint detailing. These are the fibers from this timber, sisal-like timber. And they are all dipped in Pacific water for 3 months. And after that, from the bark, they derive all these fiber-like things, which are very strong. Because don't forget, this is in the heart of Pacific, and high wind is quite natural. 180 to 200 kilometers per hour, natural. Because of that, someone's always use a round form and a round roof. Round form in plan and the round roof in section to bounce off the air very easily. Look at the artistic way of joining the rafters and the main members. Again, this is the same fiber which is extracted from sisal-like timber. Now, they do not want to waste anything. So they have this kind of joining, and which I had used it for joining bamboos, and the efficiency of the joint is quite good. Now, in summary, after studying Upolu and Savai, that joints tied with the wood strong fiber, they are replaced after 5 to 10 years. It is part of someone's life. That okay, they don't give away in one day. You just get it one after maybe 5 years, one maybe after 6 years. But every joint is visible. So whenever there is any distress, they simply untie the old one and retie with this extra one. And don't forget, there is quite a good movement when there is high wind around these, and these fibers are strong enough to take care of this. These joints are a rare combination of art and engineering. And that is something we decided that we will put it in the code, National Building Code. Now, they all have very, very long time. His short name was Lua. The Polynesians, they have a very long name because they use a family name, they use all the decorations and everything. And this is Tusu, my main bamboo worker. He didn't dress it up for my photography. This is how he dresses up. And this is a typical government of Samoa's designed for a house. Now, the Samoans very clearly said, we do not want to use bamboo right now. That bamboo will be at stage number 2. So, Western Samoa, which is still under America, from there we brought a machine. I was there for about 6 months. Brought a machine and converted the local bamboos into these kind of extruded bamboo timbers. These are all bamboo timbers, a good replacement of the timber imported from Australia. And this is a photograph done by this gentleman. He is a Fiji Indian. There are lots of Indians there in Samoa, and this is a Fiji Indian. And this gentleman, both of them made a huge shelter like this using this kind of extruded timber. Now, this is in the Bureau of Standard of Samoa. And Bambusa vulgaris was used for this particular kind. And most of the bamboos I can't really pronounce because they have such a long name. So that's what is Samoa. And, interestingly, we didn't have any test data. So I had to bank on the Indian codes, And from the Indian codes, I got the technical details of the bamboo wood. And I told them that till you get the things tasted, why don't you accept it? So on an intermediate basis, they had accepted all these things. And by this time, they have already done their own test result-based tables. So in Samoa, I would like to say that the vernacular architecture is included. Bamboo is very much part of it. And there's already, they had plenty of bamboos in Samoa, but we had identified 3 varieties, and they are being promoted as the main units. It's not being promoted, people already know about it. A very quick journey into South Africa. South Africa, my main terms of reference was to make some cost-effective schools. The schools should be child-friendly and cost-effective. And there was a large level of unemployment about the school dropouts. And the government requested that can we have technology where we can utilize the dropouts from the school so that the crime rate gets reduced. And the local village had excellent sabunga for soil making. So we thought we will be using local materials as much as possible. But the local people, the Eastern Cape, the South Africans, they were with Xhosa background. They were all Xhosas, pronounced as Xhosa, Now, these are the buildings which are in Western pattern. And most of these materials were imported, either from Europe or from Australia. Now, every South African, they dreamt of a house like this, whereas they had excellent roundabouts in the vicinity. So initially, people thought this is running back in time. But with a lot of dialogue, with a lot of talking with them, Then I said, okay, fine, you don't have to do anything. You have got your own architecture, excellent architecture. This is every tribe had their own, you know, this pattern. Just by seeing the pattern, you could recognize the tribes. And they use this kind of conical shapes because all these areas are in tornado area. So they had excellent piece of architecture. I said, why do you try to follow the Western world? Let us stick to what we already have. This is a fabulous thing which was built after a long dialogue with the local people. And this is cement stabilized mud block wall. And these are typical. Now, these kind of roofs, the Zulus, these are typical Zulu roof. And what all I had done is a little bit of modification to increase the strength against the wind suction. That is the only thing that I wanted to do with that. But rest of the and they used a smoke treatment plus put a coulter and a local grease, and that's it. A very neat roofing system. And this guy, he is a main bamboo worker, and he's also a thatcher. So see the excellent work that he had done. Uh, Entire process. All these are school dropouts. And in the process, we had created 90 days of work for the local youth. And some of them were Umakis. Umakis were the builders, and Incibis were the architects. So they adapted cement stabilized mud block. And here we were instrumental in reviving the traditional architecture. We let them learn. This is a Ratra bonded wall, which I had introduced there. They called it Afro-Indian bond. They first said that Afro bond, I said, no way, this is from India. If at all you want to do something, it should be lorry maker. And they said, no, let's have it Afro-Indian. So I didn't resist much to that. Very quickly, Myanmar. You know, in Myanmar, in I think it was 2018, there was a super cyclone called Nargis. It came with a 200 kmph, then reduced to 156 kmph, and then it tapered off. Now, my role there was because the government of Myanmar, they wanted the UNDP to help them designing the cyclone shelters in the coastal areas of Myanmar. But UNDP told me additionally that while for the cyclone shelter, we cannot use bamboo because state PWD will never approve that. But for housing, why didn't you give it a try? Fair enough. I arrived there and went to a couple of villages where I found that while most of the buildings, by the way, there was a massive tsunami with this, not really massive tsunami, it was a tidal wave, which was brought forth by the super cyclone. So every village I visited, I found that one or two buildings survived. I said, how is it possible that the tidal wave spared a couple of houses, not the others? Then the villagers told me, wherever there is a pond in front of the house has got saved. Why? What they reported, that when the tidal wave strikes a building, we know what is the result of that. If there is a pond in front of that, then the tidal wave actually falls into the ditch, rises up, loses energy. Therefore, the buildings are not much affected because of that. We simply took this. And with the help of the community, dug up, created a pond in front of that because pisciculture is very common, made an embankment, and this is how the cyclone shelter was built, purely based on whatever was the existing knowledge. Now, as far as this is called, the English pronunciation is different, but it's called Chang Community Workshop. So I traveled from one village to another, and this is a group of ladies. They all know how to build bamboos, bamboo mat, bamboo treatment, bamboo cutting, bamboo joining, everything. So there I learned more than what I could contribute. So this is the workshop going on. In the workshop, they had identified 320 square feet is a minimum covered area with one bedroom for men, one for women, cooking space, toilet, bath, and veranda. And so there was a workshop. Each individual house had designed their own house sitting there. My only job was to convert them into AutoCAD drawing, and they are not very good in placing staircase and cupboards and all, which of course I had to do. But otherwise, all the basic ideas are from them. These are the several kinds of bamboos that they used in different villages and different zones. So I didn't have to do much about it excepting recording the whole thing. Habitat, these are the basically few varieties which I had tasted. And Habitat from Asian Institute of Technology, they were the local correspondent of this one. And so they were bringing in their technology, and we from UN Habitat side, we proposed these technologies, and it was wholeheartedly accepted in the rural housing. So out of so many houses, during my tenure there, I went there 3 times, 50 houses were constructed using bamboo. Very quickly, Sri Lanka, before I go to the final one. Sri Lanka, after that civil war was over, there's a place called Manar. Manar is in the northern, just below Jaffna, Manar district. In Manar district, because of the civil war, all the people fled that place to a place called Puttalam. Now, after the civil war was over, then the government wanted all of them back to their original place. So they needed school buildings. So there was room to read. One international NGO who had invited me to go to this place and start building. With community workshop, I do not want to go into much of detail about this one. This kind of hexagonal classrooms were designed, hexagonal furniture also, because this was a child-centered teaching learning process. And this was considered to be the most conducive for the kind of child-centered teaching. We produced these kind of blocks where stone chips were available from the nearby mountains. And this is basically the typical look of it. And this is the ceiling. And you can see, and of all the bamboo works which I have done, I still like it. And this is the 10th year running. And I got some of the recent reports that they are going pretty well. But I never say going pretty well until and unless I go personally. My problem is whenever I go and see my own projects, I start identifying mistakes. I made a mistake here, I made a mistake there. But compilation of this knowledge makes me slightly better than the future projects. So in summary, what I would like to do is I would like to say that every project has got a starting point. And after the starting, we do planning, designing, and pre-implementation preparation. And this pre-implemented preparation is the most critical of all the things. And then we build the house, which is supposed to last for 30 to 50 years. Let us take it for granted that single bamboo may not be able to survive for 30 to 40 years. We have to design the entire house for replacement of bamboos. As and when there is some distress appearing in a particular member, let us replace it. Until and unless we go for a design system like that, it is not possible to make a building to last for 30 to 50 years. So I have noticed that when we build, there is a huge increase in enthusiasm. And after the building is over, the enthusiasm goes for a little bit and then it dips down virtually to nothing. One of the main reasons is constant presence in a community is a must. If you're serious about promoting bamboo in rural housing, constant presence in the community is something that is very, very important. If you buy a product today from the market, before you buy, you ask, what is the services, facilities? What is the post-sales technical support that you would like to give? You buy a car, you think about the maintenance of that. So until and unless there is a constant presence in the community, in the field of rural housing, it's very difficult to keep up the pace. Major issues, durability is the biggest question. And still, I'm not very comfortable about this. Second is non-availability of the right kind of bamboos. That is something because we need a central database, which is basically the market demand. The engineering fraternity asks for strength data. Bureau of Indian standards need upgrading. I would recommend that you please read Ermias Amedis's recent paper, which was published in October 2021. And he gives a comprehensive analysis, a comparative analysis of different codes on bamboos and what are the shortfalls on that. As far as Indian code is concerned, he says that it should cover limit state design and structural performance and the joint design. I fully agree with him. There are some more issues which I have in my hand. People view bamboo as poor person's shelter, so must be attractive. There is no concession to that. Steel is dying, let us catch them. And we do model demonstration and without immediate follow-up action through handholding beyond the demo. I think that's something which is the most important of all. We go, we give a demo, and then we get out of it, and that's where the problem is. We have to be there for a certain period of time for handholding. Only then the graph will be up and up and up. Now, very importantly, if you look at this, can you see the video? Can you see the video? Hello?
Not moving. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute.
We see the video. No,
Can
only.
you see the video?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Harder. जोर से. Now, that was a Kanakaj, which I brought from Tripura to a village called Nongba Medon, where the community was totally against bamboo. But if you get a good quality bamboo which is emitting metallic sound, look at the smile of the person, a sign of approval. So until and unless we give a good product, it will never work. Now, one of the problems that I always face is the straightness of the bamboos. Now, this is a house which I had constructed in Tripura. Everything is crooked. It's very difficult to do the joint details with this kind of thing. So something which is very important that we have to have the right variety of bamboo. Now, as far as the durability is concerned, the code is saying that 12 months to 36 months, which is a bit discouraging. Many engineers in the government scenario, they would like to say, hey, the code is saying that. How do we trust it? But, bamboo, when used under cover and out of contact with ground, they perform much better. Now, the code is saying 5 years. And these are all without treatment. If you do the treatment, what will be the durability of it? CBRI can do an accelerated laboratory testing to give some favorable results. Now, very interestingly, that 16 species of bamboos have been recommended by the Bureau of Indian Standard. And, it talks about based on the modulus of elasticity and the bending. And these are all the tests of green condition. We have to have more reliable data on the treated bamboo. Wall thickness 8 millimeters. See, these are basically the guidelines which we have to compile together. The code prescribes 14 gauge wear, but my personal experience is my missionaries will never work with this. They go for 18 gauge because until unless you use 18 gauge, you cannot pull it and tighten the joint. Okay, so code has to reconsider all these points. And nylon rope is a good alternative because corrosion of the wear is something which is very important. So there are lots of charts which are available that if you're using nylon ropes, what diameter and what strength is available. GI has 4,500 kg per square centimeters the tensile strength, but it's subject to corrosion. So we have to go for an alternative to that. Different properties which are already available, but it has to be compiled properly. Split bamboo, green condition, we need similar test results for treated bamboos. This is BNBC, Bangladesh National Building Code. I worked in Bangladesh quite extensively. I still do work. And the test data like these are the things, 2 newtons. These are the same things which we use in the northern areas. So we can always compare the test results which Bangladesh has provided. I have compared and they are pretty reliable. So we have to think about now. This is particularly for CBRI.
So this is a bamboo culm. This is a Maso bamboo culm, where we're actually working on Maso bamboo. It grows in China. And one of the things we're interested in,
I will, yes.
and so one of the things we're interested in doing is trying to see how you might optimize the use of the pieces of the bamboo in the structural bamboo product in order to get the most sort of bang for your buck, to get the best properties you can with the material that you've got. So this is one of the samples of bamboo that we test, and you can see it's a fairly thin sample. So one of the things we do is, if this is the whole wall of the culm, we take specimens from different radial positions, and then we do bending tests on these beams. So we set it up like this, and we do a little bending test like this, and that gives us a measure of the stiffness of the bamboo and also the bending strength of the bamboo. We also do compression tests as well.
So, what I wanted to say that CBRI should be coming up with this kind of test results of bamboos across the depth of the cross section. So then we'll be having more reliable data. We need some of the special notes, institutional, particularly directed at CBRI. Need for a single source of engineering properties, the National Institute with state counterparts, academic institutes. Wherever I go to do the testing at the state level, the academic institutes process is so very complicated to get any testing done. So they have to ease out the process. And number two, they have to install equipment for different types of testing of bamboos. Creating a database. Every place we build a bamboo, build with bamboo, carry out tests to know the modulus of elasticity, and direct and bending shear, etc., and feed them back into the central database. So every year we should be able to acquire more meaningful data to pave the way for, or rather royal way for, bamboo in different areas of construction. Document the traditional bamboo related process. There is a golden opportunity for us, because it's almost dying, to catch them, document them, revitalize them, and convert them into scientific format. Some of the technical notes: success is in detailing. Even now, detailing is a big question. Know the allowable stresses, which I've already talked about, durability, safe disposal of bamboo, which I don't think that we are thinking about it. If you treat with any chemical, let's say copper, chromium, and borax, when the building life is over, if the people, they take the waste bamboos and then they start burning, that will be a very uncomfortable situation. So safe disposal of bamboo when the building life is over is something which is very important. Supposing out of 30 million rural housing project under PMAYG, 3 million are using bamboo, then in the end of this project period, let's say 50 years or 30 years of the lifespan, so much of bamboo will be there in the society, which we have to safely dispose of. This is one area which I keep flogging everywhere. Use of bolt and tying. Only bolting will not do, tying will not do. Corrosion of bolts is a major issue. Nylon bolts may be quite good because they are recyclable. Also, I have come almost to the end of it. Protect the bamboo from the direct exposure to sun and rain. That's something which is the principle number one. Keep the bamboos visible for easy detection of distress. This I have noticed in Myanmar. This I have noticed in among the tribal people of Northeast India. I have particularly seen in all the vernacular architecture of Fiji, Samoa, that every joint of bamboo is not only easy for visual detection, but the joints are done in such a manner that you can repair them very easily. Do not raise bamboo from the ground. That will be a disaster. Keep provision for adequate ventilation. That's it. To be successful, you have to have a good understanding of bamboo engineering. The more you understand bamboo engineering, you will be able to produce aesthetically pleasing buildings. With that, I would say that now the situation is slightly better and we have got some success, but I would say a long way to go. Thank you very much for your kind attention.